Welcome!
Welcome back to our channel!
We have a new edition that's Earthside now. She managed to come out.
This is our channel, Stress-Induced Left Eye Twitch. I'm Jillian.
And I'm Bo, and we've been gone for
like 2 months.
I think 6 weeks. I think I checked today.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it was like, she's 5 weeks now. Spoiler alert, she's 5 weeks. It might be 7 weeks since we've uploaded.
It's been a long time because things got
Julie's darker than dark.
Yeah. Summer. Things got a little dicey in the end there, and thank you for everybody who has been so sweet asking about Bo, asking about the baby. And today, Bo is going to share her birth story. So if that's like triggering to you, click off now.
And it's like, trigger warning, it's a traumatic birth
It's very
story.
traumatic because we can't do anything non-stressfully.
No, but end note, she's perfectly fine. She's perfectly great. So am I. So
let's do this in like 2 parts. Like you tell your birth story, and then I will tell the part that you weren't there for.
Okay, great. Also, this is her nursery. She doesn't spend any time in here.
We'll do a nursery tour.
Yeah.
But like not in this video.
Okay.
Because we don't know how to film that.
So this is my daughter. She's sleeping, which side note, it's very rare in the day. She sleeps great at night. But her name is Avaya Grace. And we nicknamed her Vea.
Vea.
Little Vea.
I love it.
So Avaya means God is my father.
It's
in Hebrew. And her dad's name is also Hebrew, so that's kind of where we got it. But Avaya is her name. Grace, because God gave her to us, and after we lost our other child, we felt like it was by God's grace that she was given to us. So now to get into her...
How big was she?
Oh, well, I'll get to that.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing her name.
So at 38 weeks, I went in for her normal doctor's appointment on that Monday, and I had a really high blood pressure, and they decided to make a follow-up appointment on that Thursday, and I was scheduled for an induction on May 1st, which would have been right at 39 weeks, because my blood pressure and preeclampsia stuff I was borderline preeclampsia, or preeclamptic, and then Monday my blood pressure was 174/90, so that was really high, and she was like, okay, I'm diagnosing you with preeclampsia now. We're going to watch it till Thursday, and then Thursday we're going to make a decision whether we want to induce you that weekend or wait till Tuesday the 1st and just have a normal induction that day. So I was like, great. Then on Thursday, I went in, and I did have all of like my hospital stuff in the car. I've had it in the car because I never knew what was going to happen with
Every time it was terrible. Every appointment was bad.
But this particular appointment, I went in, it was like 9 in the morning. It was really early. And I had all my stuff. My husband did not come with me to this appointment. Hindsight, I should have just had him come. I just was like, kind of went into like, no, it's not going to happen. My blood pressure is going to be fine.
Because that's how it went with every appointment.
It was just like
it was
up
like
and down.
Great.
Yeah.
And then bad. And then great again.
It was great. And then I had been 0 dilated, like a little bit softened. Nothing like that I was ready to go. And so I went to that appointment. I went in like I normally did to get my blood pressure taken. The nurse took it, and she immediately walked out of the room. And normally when I'm with her, she always is like jokingly being like, it's high again, or we're doing great, it's low. She just walked out. And I was like, uh-oh. And she came back in, my doctor came back in, and another nurse came back in. And my doctor was like, well, I hope you weren't set on having a May baby because you need to go to the hospital. And you cannot drive yourself because you're a seizure risk. And I was like, well, what's my blood pressure? And it was 179/99. So for me, super high. I have a very small body. It just could not take that high. Because other people, if like their seizure risk is like 220 over.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
because when you called me, I Googled it, and it was like, oh, this is really, it was like something like heart failure or something. When I looked it up, I was like, what?
Well, I mean, it's bad. You should, in pregnancy particularly, you should stay around 120 or lower over like 70 or 80. And so then they hooked me up to an NST while I waited for my husband to get there because they wanted to monitor me and baby for that time. And an NST is a non-stress test, and so they just like monitor me for contractions and then her heart rate. And she is fine the whole time. I wasn't contracting or anything. My husband gets there.
But you had a really high heart rate, didn't you?
Mine stayed consistently high, like 130 is not doing anything. And then when I went into labor, I'll tell you what it was. So then we went to my hospital, which is probably like 6 or 7 minutes away from my doctor's office. We get checked in, and they took my blood pressure, and it was fine. Perfect. And so in my heart, I was like, oh. Like, I thought they were going to send me home and be like, well, fine, you're fine, we'll wait it out. So I kept trying to ask, like, in a weird, like, I don't know. I just was like, so, am I going to have a baby? Like, and then finally I just asked, I was like, am I going to leave here with a child? And my nurse was like, yeah, you're not leaving now until you walk out with your baby. And I was like, okay, good. And I think at that point I was like, okay, I'm settled in. I can do this. Like, whatever comes my way. I'm not in this, like...
Her pregnancy was just so terrible that it was, like, she just needed Vea out.
Yeah, I had no fear about giving birth. I had no fear about what would happen. I just was like, I just need this kid out of me. So they put in a cervix ripener.
I want to say one thing.
Yes.
That night before she went into her doctor's appointment, that Wednesday night, she was up all night contracting.
Yeah,
like
all
with Braxton Hicks or real contractions, we don't know. But she didn't sleep at all. This turns into something.
That's a very good point. Not at all. Like, and I don't know what it was. Like, even when I wasn't contracting, I was wide awake. I could not settle down. And I had not slept well the last 2 months of my pregnancy. But this was, like, non-stop. Like, not any rest. Cross your fingers.
Just keep going. It's fine.
So she might just be done with it. Let me know if she is freaking out. So I went in, got checked, and I was still 0 and 0. You might like that light.
Yeah, that is so pretty.
And they put in a cervix ripener, and because I wasn't ready to like. I don't know if you can see, her eyes are wide open right now. And so they put in a cervix ripener, and it was not supposed to like start me with contractions, but I had an adverse reaction to it. So within an hour of starting it, I had real contractions 1 to 2 minutes apart for a long time. And I was I went from a 0 to a 1 in an hour. So that gave me this very false hope that I was like, wow, like I'm doing this. Like, this is great. Okay, for 17 hours, I stayed at a 1. A 1. I stayed at a 1.
With contractions
now,
every minute.
You guys do not understand. They were not like, oh, I'm like, have practice contractions. Or even, like, they became contractions that you would normally get when you're about to like go from probably 7 to 8 to 9 when you have 1 to 2 minutes apart. And they started when I was 1 centimeter. And so I did not go in with any expectation to have a natural birth or an unmedicated birth. I had filled out a questionnaire that told me basically to give me the drugs as soon as I walked in the door.
ASAP.
They wanted to see how I would like progress. She's just scared. How I would progress. So if you give me something like an epidural that early, it would stall out my labor and take even longer. But it was 17 hours, and I kept saying, hey, could I have something? Could I get something? And they kept coming in with Tylenol extra strength, and I literally started crying at probably hour 15. Then I realized I could get in the jacuzzi tub because I wasn't hooked up to an IV or anything yet because I hadn't started Pitocin. And so I got in the jacuzzi tub, and it was great. I worked through a bunch of contractions in there. It was actually like real pain relief, and I didn't believe people when they said the jacuzzi tub would be pain relief, but it was. So then at 3 a.m., I got out of the, like I was off and on in the tub. 3 a.m., I was sitting on my bed, still at a, what did I say?
A 1?
I think I was a 1 or a 2 at this point. Because my water broke at 3 a.m. on its own. Just, I was sitting there.
At a 1.
Yeah, just sitting there, and I was talking. We were actually praying, my husband and I. My mother-in-law was in the room, and we were praying, and I stopped, and I said, I think you just peed myself. And my mother-in-law was like, that's okay, it happens. And I, like, turned to Naya, and I was like, I don't think it's pee. It was the weirdest sensation I've ever felt probably in my life. It was like a waterfall was coming out of me. And I did the test that they told me to do, where it was like you try to squeeze, like, to stop peeing. And it wasn't stopping more. It was just coming out. And I was like, hey, can you ring the nurse, Naya? I think that my water broke. And my husband did not believe me. And he was like, okay. So he, like, rang the thing on the call light. And he was like, okay, so Josie thinks her water broke. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it really did. So they came in, they, like, checked, and it just kept coming out. And she was like, yep, that's your water. I need you to go to the bathroom and put on those giant, like, mesh underwear with the pads in it. So I went in and put those in, and then I was like, do I get my epidural now? Because that, any, like, cushion then was gone. Like, when you're pushing against this thing, your water is supposed to be a little bit of a cushion. And so it helps people get to 5 and 6 before their water breaks.
She still had
a 1
or a 2.
I think I was between that, and it broke, and so I had no cushion. And she was like, yes, this is when you can get your epidural. I was like, great. So I had to wait another hour and a half for some reason. I'm sure the anesthesiologist needed to come in or something like that. So I worked through more contractions, still at 1 to 2 minutes every time. And he came in. He set me up for the epidural. Right when he is placing my epidural, my husband's 5 o'clock alarm goes off, like, blaring. And I just thought to myself, he's going to paralyze me, because he just jumped. And Naya's holding me, because you, like, hunch over and they hold you, or he holds you still while you're in this, like, cat position. And so he did not paralyze me. At first, I was so sad because because I didn't feel immediate relief. I just thought it would be, like, immediate relief. And he was like, it's going to take, like, 20 minutes. And so then after 20 minutes, it was amazing. I felt great. I felt like I could take on the world. I had been given a shot of fentanyl beforehand, like, when it was during the 17 hours, like, in the middle of the night. And I felt like that was the greatest gift. And then I had an epidural, and that was even better. And so then from 5 to 7 is when I progressed. So my sister and my mom were in and out. Julie,
days.
Yeah, Julie was there that whole day, like, in and out, and she would come in, and I was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
She came in one time when I was eating a popsicle, and then I threw up all of it.
And it was just so random. It was like, literally that whole day she'd been okay, trying to get some sleep. So we tried to stay away.
Yeah.
Because she was just exhausted. She had been up for 2 days, couldn't really sleep because people kept coming in and out. Mostly our mall.
People were in and out. But,
and then
I didn't really...
you threw up.
Yeah, and my mom says that that's when I was starting to transition. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing.
Because by that point, you were at, like, a 5.
Yeah. No, so I went from 2 to a 5 really quickly. Yeah. And I was so excited. My doctor was so excited. We're like, okay, we're progressing. We can do this. Just take this. It will make you feel better. And so then, I threw up. So my epidural was, like, really great, but then it, like, started to get really spotty, and I could feel my contractions.
Because it had been literally another whole day.
Yeah, so...
Like, you got your epidural at, like, 8 or 9 in the morning.
5 in the morning.
And then I had gotten there at 5 at night. And you were, like, totally fine. We were laughing, talking. And all of a sudden, she just started vomiting, because she had a popsicle.
That's great.
That's when you were transitioning from a 5. And she went from a 5 to a 9.
Really quick.
In, like, 45 minutes.
Yeah,
no
really
joke. Because I was only there from, like, 5 to 5:45.
And I didn't, like... I wasn't like feeling really bad. My blood pressure was really high, and then it tanked really low.
And
like
your pulse was high.
My pulse stayed consistently 130s to like 140s. And then, but she was doing fine the entire time. This is why we kept going with this, like not having a C-section, is because she was just great the whole time. Through all the contractions, her heart rate, everything was like perfect.
It was like 30 hours at this point.
Yeah, it was a long time. But then, so I went from 5 to like 9.
They said 9.5.
They said, okay, so that's where it comes into play. They checked me and said 9.5, and they said, okay, we're going to get you ready to do some practice pushing. And so I was like, okay. And
so
then
we all left.
Everyone left. It was just my husband and I. I had my nurse that, like, my hospital does one-on-one nurses. And so it was like my night nurse. I had gone through birthing classes with every nurse that I had.
Oh, that's so nice.
It was really nice. I knew them all. They knew us. It was great.
Because her birthing classes, it was only ever...
It was one-on-one. It was just my husband and I and a nurse. And so we went through 4 different nurses, and they were my people.
That's so nice.
You like that life?
It wasn't supposed to be like that. It just ended up being like that.
Yeah, it wasn't. People, you could have up to 7 couples, and it was just us. But it worked out great because they loved us. Okay, so then at 9.5, she said I could start doing my practice pushes. They all left. I started doing practice pushes, and I said to them, I feel like my epidural is wearing off. And then probably 10 minutes later, the epidural machine started beeping like it had run out of stuff. And so then I was like feeling really like just yucky and bad, like pain. It wasn't at a point where I was like unbearable yet, but then it was like an hour into it where nobody really trusted that it was, my anesthesiologist came in and he was like, no, you have enough to get you through pushing. And so an hour into pushing, it wears off, like just wears off. I'm telling you, it had been a gradual wear off, and then I could feel everything on my left side. And so then, you're scaring me. So it wears off, and then they check me after an hour pushing, and I was doing a good job pushing. I got assurance from them that I was doing it the way I was supposed to be doing it. They checked me and realized that 9.5, which were my practice ones, it had never gone away, and I had been pushing against a lip for an hour.
So she wasn't a full 10 yet.
I wasn't a full 10. She was getting pushed up against my cervix, but it wasn't
for
open
an hour of straight pushing, she wasn't even ready to push.
Hour of like my probably most strength that I could muster at that point. Like I was probably the most prime right that hour. So after an hour, it had basically worn off on my left side. I've been pushing against the lip, and then little Miss Avaya somehow flipped in the canal, and she would they would be feeling for her, and they were like she would not basically her, if you get her head into the area or whatever, she just kept coming in and then going out.
And they said she was sunny side up.
Yeah, and she flipped. So they made me stop everything because she started to go in, not distress, but her heart rate went to 180, which is the highest. And
Bo had a fever this whole time.
I had gotten a fever because my water probably had been broken too long. Or my mom says it's because I was so, I had been pumped so full of fluids. I hadn't eaten, I hadn't slept, anything. We were on day 2 now of not sleeping.
Her body was just, in pure distress at this point.
Yeah.
This is, 2 nights she hadn't slept, and now we're on to the 3rd night where she's supposed to have the most strength and the most stamina, and she hasn't slept for 2 full days.
And again, I was never against having a C-section. That was
or
never...
drugs.
Or drugs.
Working drugs.
When it was working, it was great. So they made me stop everything. They had me... My epidural was I don't know what they call it. It's like a walking one. So I could get on my hands and knees. I had feeling in my legs. It was great for that point. So they had me get on my hands and knees.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't realize that you could do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just is how mine reacted to it. So I was on my hands and knees, and they flip her. They flip her.
Mm-hmm. Graphic.
That's what they did. And then I had to wait 20 more minutes for everything to calm down. And then the anesthesiologist, because at 10 centimeters pushing, it had worn off. And so he came back in. So after 20 minutes, he's like working on my epidural again. And he goes, do not push this button or it will send you straight to a C-section. And I was like, what? And it was my extra dose. Like you have, oh, hi, your hand got out. You get power to have like an extra dose. And so he was like, don't push this yet for like a half an hour or it will send you to C-section, because my body had already been flooded. He did this thing where he floods you to try to help the overlap of my epidural not working. So then I proceed for another 2 hours and 45 minutes. So all together, 3 hours and 45 minutes, we get her to a point where she's like, her head's there, and she gets her head out, she gets her shoulders out, and for some reason, her hips get stuck. Like, guys, just stuck. They were trying. My doctor had been, when her head wasn't out, we were like, you might have to use the vacuum on her, which is the...
They were kind of threatening, Bo.
They were threatening me with it, and I was like...
In a good way.
I just kept saying, get her out. Like,
Yeah.
I have no problem. Anything you need to do, get her out of me. I was so mentally, physically, emotionally drained. And I was like, just get her out. I was screaming it to get her out of me. And so her hips get stuck. And then they decide to do an episiotomy to get her out.
They don't need to know what that is.
They snipped me to get her out. She gets out. They put her on me. My eyes at this point were so swollen.
Guys, it was 4 hours of pushing.
Yeah, 4 hours of pushing. My eyes were so swollen. I could not see my daughter when they put her on me. I had to ask Naya, what does she look like? And they kept asking me when I was pushing, they're like, do you want to feel her head? And I was like, no! And I was like, what does she look like? And my husband just kept going like, oh, she has hair. She has hair.
Tell them what you said to Naya while you were pushing. You kept being like, are my eyes...
Oh, no, it was after.
Are my eyes bulging out of my...
No, after she got out. I didn't realize it when I was pushing. I think I was just in adrenaline mode. Yeah. When she got out, I don't think I even asked about Avaya. My eyes were coming out of my head, and they were permanently stuck. It felt like we were stuck that way. And so they were bulging out of my head, and I asked my husband, the first thing out of my mouth was, are my eyes supposed to feel like this? And I turned to the nurse, and I was like, will they go back? What? And no, everyone was laughing. And all of my pictures have me going like this, because I was convinced that my eyes.
And Naya was like, you kept going, are they bulging out of my head? And Naya kept saying,
no,
yes.
The doctor.
And the nurses were like, no, they're not. And you were like, I believe Naya.
The doctors, I kept saying, are my eyes okay? They feel like they're coming out of my head, like they're bulging. And they were like, they're not.
They are.
And I turned to my husband, and I was like, are my eyes okay? And he was like, they're bulging. And I was like, I believe him. And so then I was just concerned that she had screwed up my eyes forever.
Oh, they were
If I could post it, I might post a picture for you guys on our Instagram or something.
Well,
we can
we're
figure
gonna
out.
post pictures like of her and of like your birth.
Because pay attention to my eyes; they're coming out of my head. So then I hemorrhaged.
Pictures don't even
during all
justice.
of this, guys. I'm hemorrhaging. Don't even really realize it. So the doctor is like, and they thought they were going to have to break her collarbone to get her out of me. Also, like that part when it didn't come out, but then they didn't have to do that. So she didn't have to have that. But then
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my mom told me that. They kept saying shoulder dysplasia, and I didn't know what that meant the whole time. But Mom said they'd have to break her collarbone.
Oh, good.
They didn't
have to.
So I hemorrhaged. They got it to stop. And then, I mean, she was born 7 pounds, 7 ounces at 38 weeks. Then they told me she was 18 inches long, but they had to remeasure her, and she was 20 inches long. So 7 pounds, 7 ounces, 20 inches long, Avaya Grace entered the world dramatically, just like her birth. She's got a nice head of hair on her.
She looks like a pixie. She honestly does.
She has pointed elf ears.
She does. She legitimately does.
Yeah.
She's like, Mom!
So can you think of anything else in this part?
I'll just tell like a little bit of what was going on outside in the waiting room. So, but Mom and I were in and out like the whole 36 hours that it took her to give birth. But I mean, honestly, I was just trying to give Bo space with her husband. I know how Bo is when she's like this. So that night that she gave birth, I came after I got off work, and that's when she started transitioning. So I was like, Mom, I'm going to run home and put Jordan to bed, and then I'll come back when she starts pushing. So the minute I leave the hospital, I get a text, she's going to start pushing.
From Mom?
Yeah, and I was like maybe like 7 minutes away from the hospital. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. Like,
that's what I thought.
Bo is so strong. And I was like, if she's going to push, this baby's going to be out in 45 minutes.
That was my mindset too.
I just was like, guys, I'm not joking. Bo is not only strong, but like mentally, she is the most stubborn person I've ever met in my life. So I was like, this is just going to go so quick. So I like jet home, drop off dinner for my husband. And then I was like, I got to go back. She's already pushing. So I like run back. So now I'm in the waiting room, which is literally 4 feet from the door where Bo is giving
My waiting room was right outside of my door. The entire hospital floor's waiting room was outside of my door.
And there was like nobody in that hospital.
No, it's a very small hospital.
Yeah, but it was really nice. So I'm out there with Mom, Dad, and her in-laws. Her in-laws. So her 2 Naya's parents.
Yep.
So that's me out there with them. And listen, Naya's parents are great. Our parents are a little crazy. I love them to death. So Mom had gotten off work and she stayed there and waited for me to get back there. The whole time Bo is giving birth, Mom is trying to sneak into the storage room that's connected to Bo's birthing suite so she can record on her phone what's going on. She's like frantic, so much frantic energy. And Dad is so overwhelmed because I'm not joking. You could hear everything. All the screaming, all of the listening to it for me was fine. I was not worried about it. I was like, they've got her, it's fine. I kind of wondered why they hadn't done a C-section yet, but I wasn't like panicking at all. But like listening to Bo in that much pain for our father was crippling for him, I think. And so he snuck into an empty patient's room and blared worship music for like an hour. He comes out pacing, goes back in. Mom's still trying to sneak into the other room. Oh. And I'm like live texting Bo's cousins about what's going on the whole time. And I'm like so calm. At one point I was like really emotional hearing her because I felt like, and Bo assures me that they were listening to her, but being on the outside, not knowing what was going on.
There's just a lot of screaming.
Yeah. Well, no, just hearing you be like, get her out of me. I can't do anything more.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, at what point is there a safe word? And I didn't realize that like a C-section wasn't possible at that point.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, where's her safe word? Where can she just be done? Like, her energy is depleted.
Yeah.
It's been literally 3 days of no sleep at this point. And so then once I heard Avaya cry, I was like totally fine, but I broke down. The minute I heard Avaya cry, I just started weeping. I was just so happy that it was over with.
That it was
not
done.
even the birth, but the pregnancy was over with.
Yeah.
Like, I had just been so scared.
It's like it came to a head and
it was just like, oh, she's done. She's safe, I think. I kept waiting to hear Bo talk, but I couldn't hear her.
Yeah, I felt like I was talking, but my mom had recordings and I would have been freaked out too because I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, all I could hear, and like Avaya was so loud.
She was so loud. She had lungs from the get-go.
She still does. I kind of hope she cries a little on camera. But then, okay, so then there was like a golden hour, and at this point, everybody's like, it's like midnight.
I gave birth at 10:44, and then there's a golden hour where she eats for her first time. I was still getting stitched up.
Yeah,
we were just
trying to make her a human again.
Yeah.
And so I was like totally okay for that golden hour. I was tired. I wanted to go home.
I'm sure she's not a night person.
But I was okay. Yeah, I go to bed at like 8. So I was just like, I can't wait to see her. The minute I see Bo, I mean, I wanted to see Avaya, but like, I wanted to see that you were okay.
Understandable.
And so we got in. My parents are like so anxious. So we got in to see her. And the minute I see Bo, I just start weeping.
So did my dad.
I mean, she looked terrible. Guys, I'm not joking. Her eyes were so huge. It's like from all the pressure of pushing, her eyes literally bulged out of her head. She couldn't even open them.
Yeah, I kept telling them, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm really trying to open my eyes. I just can't open, like I couldn't physically open my eyes.
She broke blood vessels in both of her eyes, and then she was like black. It looked like she had 2 black eyes. And she's so full of like fluids at this point. Her arms, her hands are huge, her legs are huge, like her face was swollen, and I just was like, what has this girl done to my sister?
I had not, like...
I, like, barely looked at Avaya. I was, like, so... I loved her,
I don't know how people can take, like, mine was not glamorous photos at all, where it's like, I, like, was a hot mess.
I, like, looked at a photo of someone we know really well the other day after they had just given birth, and she looked like a supermodel. So I don't know.
Yeah. That's what happened.
I was the same way, Bo, and my birthing experience was completely different. But if you look at my photos, I'm like,
yeah, there wasn't any. I had no care about what I looked like at that point, except for my eyes.
She couldn't even make herself look better if she
tried.
I
couldn't.
Okay, so then afterwards, I mean, the reason, not that we need a reason for like not filming. Bo is settling into motherhood and all of that.
We'll give another update about all of that.
Okay, then we'll do that.
We'll do that. I'll share it all. Well, it didn't go as glamorously when we were done.
And guys, look on Instagram if you want to see like closer shots of Avaya.
She has dimples.
She is like the most gorgeous little girl ever. She looks like a pixie.
She looks not like me very much.
She looks like Brooklyn.
She looks like Brooklyn, our niece. So if you know our niece, she looks like her with a mix of my husband. But, like, the prettiest features of a husband, like my husband. I don't know how to, like, describe it.
She has, like, the same nose that Brooklyn has, that Jordan has. Like, some of their features, it's just so weird how all 3 of them have, like, the same, and, like, the same personalities.
Yeah. I'll get into it. Let's do an update.
Okay, all right, we'll do another video. All right, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe down below.
Hopefully we're back.
Yeah, hopefully we are. But, like, our schedule with filming might just be a little different just because we don't know, like, when we'll have help with Avaya.
Yeah.
And she's not a sleepy baby.
She's not. She basically was awake for 15 to 20 minutes of this. And that's good.
All right. Bye.
It's so dark.
I know, it's because I'm outside every day.
Bye,
I'll
guys.
push the button. I just gotta make sure not to flash.